So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for one of the best balanced formations in FIFA 23, this being the 4-2-3-1 narrow variation. It's team of the season, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics. For the defensive style, I like to have this on balanced as always. The reason being is balance gives you the greatest control over your defense, where you're able to press when you need to press, but you're also able to drop off and be a little bit more passive when you need to be. So it does give you the very much needed balance and control that other settings will not give you. Now moving on to the defensive width guys, I like to have this on about 40 in this formation. Now the reason for this is we can primarily defend in a narrow and compact shape, which will stop the attacks right through the middle. It stops an opponent just being able to run right through the middle of you, but at the same time we've still got a little bit of natural width to cover the wide areas in case an opponent tries to go down the wing, which is the main reason why we don't have the width any lower than that. Now moving on to the depth guys, at the moment I'm using this at about 45. Now the reason I'm doing this is I used to have this a little bit higher, well quite a lot higher, but the reason I've lowered it is because with all these new TOTS attacker cards that are just really super quick and jammy, it's been impossible to not get through balled at the moment. So by lowering the depth to about 45, it's managed to help me with the through balls quite a bit, and the opponent can't just like quite literally one through ball you and score. But the reason I don't go any lower than this is because I don't want to get constantly pinned back, and I don't want my defensive line to be that deep to the point where we can't get out. So that's why I've got it on about 45 at the moment. Now moving on to build up play guys, I suggest using balance. Now the reason for this is it gives you the most control and variation when you are building up the play. When you have this on balance, sometimes you're able to build up slowly, other times you're able to build up a little bit quickly. You're really able to choose your own pace when it suits you. If you use something like fast build up or slow build up, you're limited to that style all the time, which might not always be the best option. If you try and play slow with something like fast build up, for example, that's not going to work out too well. Moving on to chance creation guys, I like to have this on direct passing. This is because it's the most meta option you can use. Basically it's really good because your attacking players will bunch up against the defenders, meaning you can do the really overpowered 1v1 isolation plays. Players also make the extra movements in the box, so you get the extra pass option, which will guarantee you the goals and minimize the RNG. Now moving on to the attacking width guys, I like to have this on about 45 at the moment. The reason for this is I don't want the width to be too low to the point where it feels like our players are sat on top of each other because it's like super narrow, and at the same time I don't want it to be like super wide either, otherwise I might as well just use the wide variation of this formation. I like going for something in between where it's neither too narrow or too wide, so 45 has worked out quite nicely. Now moving on to players in box guys, I like to have this on 5. This is because it's bang in the middle, so we can get some players into the box to create those chances, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which requires both of these to be on 1, link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the plays you want to use guys, in the striker position, because this is a one striker formation, I do suggest going for a nice well-rounded striker. This is because you have to compensate for the fact that there's one striker instead of 2 in this formation, so where you'd be able to get the balance between the 2 players in a 2 striker formation, you have to get that all in one player in this formation. So I suggest going for a nice well-rounded player, somebody that can shoot on either foot, somebody that's got decent dribbling and passing abilities, and obviously somebody that can finish the ball as well. Now moving on to the central cam guys, I suggest using just a really good attacking player. It doesn't have to be an actual cam if you don't want to use one, but I do suggest using somebody that has good creative ability, somebody that is decently agile, somebody that can shoot, basically do a bit of everything in attack. There's not too many like requirements I guess, but just make sure you're using somebody that you feel comfortable with in this cam position. Now moving on to the right cam and the left cam, the ram, lamb, whatever you want to call them, I suggest you guys use good like winger style players. These are players with really good pace, good dribbling, good skill moves, good shooting, crossing, basically really good all-round attack, but you're not going to want to use like slow and clunky players that have no creative ability in these positions, otherwise you're going to struggle a lot in these wider areas. So just make sure like the right cam and the left cam are really good. Now moving on to the left CDM, I like to use a more box-to-box style player. This is somebody that's going to attack and defend, so you're going to want somebody with a nice well-rounded card so they can do a bit of everything, and if you can get it, a high work rate so you get the maximum contributions in both attack and defense. Now moving on to the right CDM, I like to go for a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that's going to stay back, break up the play and add defensive security for us, so you're going to want somebody with a really good defensive card, and if you can get it, a medium high work rate so you get the maximum contribution in defense and they're not too bothered about going forward. Moving on to the left back, I like to go for a more attacking minded fullback. This is somebody that's actually going to commit forward for us on the attack, so I like to use somebody that has good attacking ability. Moving on to the right back, I like to go for a more defensive minded player. This is so I've got like a balance between the two fullbacks where I've got one more attacking minded player and then somebody that's a little bit better defensively. That's just something I like to do. And then as for the two centre backs and the keeper, these just need to be as meta as you can get them. There's not too much to say about them. Now moving on to the player instructions, guys. On the striker, I suggest having him on stay central, and I also have him on mixed attack. So I have him on stay central because it's important that he does stay in the central areas. He is our only striker, so we don't want him drifting out wide, otherwise he's never where we need him to be. I also have him on mixed attack because he gets a lot more involved in the build-up and you get a lot more out of your striker this way. If you put him on getting behind, he feels very disconnected from the rest of the team and you're very limited in what you can do. You kind of just always have to do like through balls and crosses because that's all they seem to want, because they just make the one-dimensional run. So mixed attack's better in my opinion. Moving on to the central cam, I have him on completely default settings. The reason I do this is because I don't want to restrict this player all that much. He's kind of got like a bit of a free role in this team, so we kind of just leave him alone and let him do whatever he wants to do, really. I don't like putting restrictions on this player. Moving on to the lamb and the ram, I have them both on get into the box for cross. The reason I do this is because if you have them on balance crossing runs, sometimes these players are a little bit static when you get to the penalty area and they don't really get involved. When you put them on get into the box for cross, they make the transitional runs into the penalty area to get more involved. So get into the box for cross, super useful on both the wide cams. Now moving on to the left CDM, the more box to box style player, I like to have him on default settings and then cover center. We have him on default settings because he is a box to box player, so we do want him to do a bit of everything, so we kind of just let him do that. The only important thing is that we have him on cover center, so he does cover those central areas. Moving on to the right CDM, the more defensive minded CDM, we have him on cut passing lane, stay back while attacking and cover center. We have him on stay back while attacking because he is a defensive player, so we don't want him going forward. We have him on cut passing lane, so he's always looking to break up the play and be annoying to the opponent. And then again, we have him on cover center, so he does cover the central areas when we are defending. Moving on to the left back, my more attacking minded fullback, I have him on balanced attack and overlap. The reason I do this is because although the 4-2-3-1 is one of the wider narrow formations, sometimes we still need a little bit of extra width. So by putting this fullback on balanced attack and overlap, it means he's going to join the attack for us and he's going to make the overlapping runs to give us a wide option and add extra width. Super useful to have one of your fullbacks on this setting. Moving on to the right back, my more defensive minded fullback, I have him on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have him on stay back, so we always at least have 3 defenders back at a time, and then we have him on overlap in case I do press L1 to trigger a run with him. He's going to make the overlapping runs to add extra width. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these are on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-2-3-1. If you have enjoyed or found this useful, please be sure to drop this a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.